You know who I want to bring in right now to this conversation? Somebody who has been the eyes and ears every single day in this trial. I'm talking about our great Kara Scannell, who has literally brought us everything we needed. Okay, Kara, you know I'm going to ask you. Describe the moment for us that verdict is read. In fact, go a little bit back. Describe what was happening when they knew the verdict was coming.
So the only lawyer in the entire courtroom was Combs' lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, and we saw the courtroom deputy appear with an envelope in his hand. So I walked over to Mark. He said it was a note. This is the family leaving. This is the van that the kids use to come and go to court.
I'm seeing his mother get on the van right now. His sons are getting on the van. Miss Janice is on the van right now. His sons, his daughters, you recognize by the long braids that they've had through the court proceeding as well. They're coming out. Of course, his son right there, Justin, and also Christian. Christian releasing an album with Kanye this last week. Talking on one track was, I think it was called Free Puff. You see what's happening. This is monumental. Go ahead, Kara.
Yeah, no, I mean, his kids were beaming in the courtroom. And just to go back to that moment, we know that now there is a verdict. And unlike any other time, we have Combs' legal team goes into the side room. They didn't bring Combs right out, so they went into the side room, and that is what was our first signal that there was a verdict, that this was different, that things had changed. So they were in. There's his mother walking out, and his mother walking out there.
One of his daughters.
And his sons and the daughters
two twin
behind
daughters
him.
behind.
Yes. So when they come back into the courtroom after a delay, it is very serious. His kids are filing in, his mother's there, his sister is there, and his mom and sister have been there for the majority of this trial, which has been for several weeks. Once the judge gets on the bench and says that they have a verdict, it is silent. Everybody is waiting for the judge. Combs is just sitting there, sitting down with his head down. He's got his glasses on. It looks like he's reading something, but he is not reacting in this moment. His lawyers' faces are drawn. They actually are frowned. They're very nervous, his legal team.
Really?
And then the jury comes out. No jurors look at Combs. They all file into their seats.
Wait, tell me about that. These jurors have come in. They came in yesterday, and they actually stared straight ahead, I understand, when they had that hung part. Now they didn't look at him either?
They didn't look at him at all. Ooh. So it felt a little ominous, because that is the thing that people always look for. Does the jury reveal anything as they're heading to their seats? They walk to their seats. The judge has them, tells them he's going to have the four-person read. So the four-person stands up, says that they have a verdict. The deputy gives him the sheet. The four-person has it with the microphone. Then he hands it back to the judge so the judge can review it. And then he hands it back to the four-person.
Did the judge make any expression whatsoever when he had the note?
He studied it. I thought he paused and studied it, and he looked at it carefully. Then he handed it back to his deputy, who gave it to the four-person. And then the deputy said, I'm going to go count by count through this. And then they polled each of the jurors to ensure that it was their ultimate vote and their decision. So after that first count one, racketeering conspiracy, a serious big count in this, when that first not guilty came out from I'm sitting right behind the two rows of his family. You hear them say yes. And then when they get to the second count, not guilty on the sex trafficking Cassie Ventura, you actually hear whoo whoo in the room. Even though the judge asked everyone to be quiet, it was this overwhelming sense of emotion from the family, this sense of relief from the family as those counts came out. And then I think we're going to go to a break soon, but we can talk more about how Combs reacted afterwards when the judge, when his lawyer asked, the jury had left, and the judge asked the lawyers if they had anything to say, and Combs' lawyers asked for him to be released immediately to walk out of this courtroom today. And the judge said he was going to consider that. He said, I understand Combs doesn't want to spend another moment at the Metropolitan Detention Center. Combs vigorously shook his head no. It was the first kind of reaction we saw. He did hug his lawyer, Tenny, on the side. That was really the first signs of emotion until he left the courtroom.
I just want you to bring us inside that courtroom as the verdict was read. I mean, this really was the best realistic scenario, if you will, for Sean Diddy Combs and his family who were inside that room.
It was alleged that Pam, it absolutely was. The charges that he was acquitted on were the most serious. They carried the potential life sentence. So when the jury said not guilty to those counts, you saw the release from weeks that this family has carried with them. You heard yes coming from some of the kids. You heard a whoof after the first sex trafficking count was found not guilty. There was just so much relief. And then once the jury exited the courtroom, Mark Agnifilo, Combs' attorney, had argued for his release, saying all of his family's here. Any one of these people can sign, support him so that you can be assured he's not going to do anything else. He's learned any lesson he's going to learn. He realizes he's got a second chance on life because the stakes here were so high. Then once the judge was off the bench, Combs was able, he's still in custody, but he was able to turn to his family, and his family members were all cheering. They broke into applause. He turned to his mom. Well, he said to everyone, "I love you." He turned to his mom. He said, "Mom, I love you." And then he just said, "I love you, I love you, I love you," as he was brought out of the room. And just it erupted into applause. His 2 rows of family members were so elated by this because of the huge relief. I saw some people dabbing their eyes from tears of relief. And then his lawyers, they were embracing each other. They were slapping each other on the back. There were chants of dream team from some of the family members looking at the attorneys. One was over hugging the family members, crying. There was such this sense of euphoria from the side that they got him not convicted of these most serious charges because he could have faced decades in prison.
And Kara, the mom yesterday and him have been, they talk almost every day in this courthouse. What have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, they have a very close interaction every day. Yesterday, she seemed to be summoning him over more before he was brought in and out of the courtroom because he can't stay there because he's in custody. And he was reassuring
he goes to a cell
her.
block behind the courtroom.
Yeah, the marshals lead him out. They bring him downstairs to his cell, and that is where he has to wait. And so he kept reassuring her, saying, "It's going to be all right. I'm going to be all right." You know, he said to his family when he was leaving, "Stay strong. You know, I'm hoping to come home soon." So they are really putting a lot. And there will be more proceedings this afternoon to decide whether or not he will get bail, whether he will be released as soon as today to go home to his family with some conditions.
What are we waiting for? Those letters to the judge?
Yeah, there's a 1 o'clock deadline for the parties to submit their best argument. The prosecution's opposing this. They said even though he was acquitted of the serious counts, the judge should not forget that conduct. They say that he's still a violent person and that he is a flight risk. So they are still arguing that he should be detained. The judge is saying, I want to know what the case law is. Has anyone who's been convicted of Mann Act, the prostitution charge, been denied bail? And so Combs' lawyer is saying release him on $1 million bail. The judge wants this in writing. He said he'll have everyone back later today. No time has yet been set. But then the judge is going to make a decision. He said he'll decide today. And so the question is, does Combs walk out of here a free man at some point today or in the next few days, or does he stay in custody until he's sentenced? So you can hear there's some chants of people who want Diddy to be released right now since he was acquitted of the most serious counts, and that is what his lawyers have asked the judge to do. I mean, this was such a moment in the courtroom. We've been through more than 6 weeks of testimony in this trial, and Combs was found not guilty of the most serious charges. So we are seeing a big crowd here, more than we've seen in the past few days, and some supporters here asking for his immediate release. So the judge said that he will take paper submissions by the parties, and then he will make a decision today on whether to grant Combs bail. You know, Combs has been in federal detention since he was arrested in September, so almost a full year. The judge is asking the prosecution, who wants him to stay in federal custody, what other cases exist where someone who's been convicted of essentially prostitution has had their bail denied while they're awaiting sentencing. That will all tee up this afternoon. No time yet set for that, but Combs' team hoping that he will walk out this door today.
And also importantly, the idea here of what they're going to consider if you're the judge, they're going to consider when you try to release somebody after a conviction, whether they pose a threat to the general community or a safety concern, whether they're a flight risk, the severity and nature of the crimes. Although the prosecution is arguing right now that he is likely to commit crimes again, the judge can't take that into full consideration because they're talking about the idea that the jury did not buy the notion of witness tampering. The jury did not buy, we're told, the notion of obviously of RICO or anything else that he was charged with other than the transportation for the purpose of prostitution. And so the judge is going to weigh all those factors. He will not have access to a plane. And what conditions of release could possibly be set to allow for 2 things to happen? One, for him to await sentencing, and the other to make sure the community is safe. His comfort is not the judge's concern, but that's what he has to weigh. And behind us, by the way, as well, talk about the courthouse. But the court of public opinion is on full display here in Manhattan. Not a minute goes by when you don't hear people breaking out into screaming matches behind us from 2 different sides of the issue. Some are shouting that this was an egregious outrage. Others are saying this is exactly what should happen. People are circling one another, and they are shouting about domestic violence. They are shouting about what men can do with women. They're shouting about Me Too. They're shouting about the court system. They're shouting against railroading. They're shouting, and you can see the range of emotion on full display here. People have very strong opinions, as you can obviously see, but the fact that Kara is so accurate here, it's almost noon. It's about 11:30 a.m., guys. They are supposed to give a letter to the judge by 1 p.m. about whether he should leave or not, and then the judge will decide today. There is a possibility that Sean Diddy Combs walks out that door behind us the same way that his daughters, his sons, his mother, his supporters have done day in and day out. Can you imagine?